Hey guys, welcome to another live Play&Explain video. This time only 200 zoom unfortunately. Check 6 is close, I think check 7 suited is the bottom here. I will try and record more 500 zoom whenever I see an opportunity, but unfortunately, usually when I make these videos it's in the early afternoon and there's not too much 500 zoom running. King check suited can go both 3-bet or call. And in those positions I would fold versus a 4-bet. I mean, if this was big blind button, this would be a terrible flop. In those positions, I don't think it is. And I roll quite aggressive. So I think I will actually go for the c-bet. Although king check is probably one of the lower frequency c-bets, I would think, because he has queens basically pure in those positions, and I don't even have two overcards versus pocket queens, which is quite a big deal. So ace king would be a much better c-bet and barrel than king check. But I don't think that king check pure check max. But I'm not quite sure, honestly, in those positions. Turn is for sure a pure check, I would think. And I need to find some naked ace king jams here, because there are not really any other draws prevalent. And to make him indifferent with his pairs. But king check just has to always mug, of course. But I think like ace king, especially ace king in diamonds, would be a really nice jam because you block less of his backdoor flush draw float, so you make it more likely that he is bluffing. Therefore, have more fold equity. I think the board in general should be somewhat okay for us, because he shouldn't really have many 4s, 5s, 6s. So it's pretty planky, and our overpairs are very strong on this board. Check 6 I will call versus the 2.2. On those sort of boards you can already start turning some second pairs into bluffs here. But I think on this board texture we rather use check X in diamonds. And then take a hand like 7-8, 7-6 to raise. And of course this hand can never fold. Queen 8 is close, I think. With the 200 rake structure you rather fold. On the 7 you should play very polarized with overbet or check. It does go check check. And I for sure cannot value bet man, just thinking how I would approach this board in general. Given the positions where you should have king 10 a lot and always reverse queens, I don't think I would use massive sizings. I think ace queen suited is actually just a very high frequency c-bet, because it's just a value bet on this board. Especially with the backdoor flush draw, we have a pretty strong hand. And I don't think I need to call my check here versus the overbet. I think the river is so bad that I can't ever bet the queen. And I probably also have to check maybe some ace-x. So I don't think I need to call check X here. This is a recreational. I do think I want to bet my hand, just debating whether small or half pot is my preferred preferred sizing. And on the check, I think I just get to have quite an aggressive barreling frequency. And I expect the recreational to just have too many weak hands. Like, I don't think a recreational folds deuces or threes ever to the free bet, then he probably always calls flop and just ends up with too weak of a range where he is going to overfold, on later streets. Another play would be maybe go small on the flop and then look to check call on some runouts and call down, because I expect his queen to be pretty strong still. And we face the cold 4-bet, so in theory I think this is close, but most players at 200 zoom don't find enough cold 4-bet, so in doubt I think I just fold when, like, the best option is we have a break-even call or maybe slightly winning, and the worst option is that we are torching money, so I think just folding is more safe, and I think 10-9 is also a bit too weak to call in these positions. Ace queen suited, of course, easy. Oh, okay, with the unknown guy goes for the free bet. I think I will still go, like, in theory this is always a cold 4. There is of course some danger that this guy might be a recreational player who doesn't free bet much, then cold 4-betting ace queen suited is not a great play. But yeah, we shall see. Great board for us, and I think ace queen is, like, from a theoretical perspective, this guy might also be reg, I don't know. I think ace queen is probably a better hand to triple than ace king because you block queens, and I expect him to fast play kings. And I think the board is so good that I can actually third range instead of quarter range, but those are all just assumptions. I haven't really put too much effort into studying those spots because they appear so rarely that I think it's better to freestyle and think how do the ranges look, how do they interact on this board, and I mean this is just as blank as it gets. So I think this has to be a great board for the cold 4-bet, I would assume. But yeah, like, my advice if you are at home would be to not spend too much time looking at those spots. I think 10-5 is probably just too weak. Like, when there are multiple players, you actually have to tighten up a bit in the big blind. But yeah, my advice would be to not spend too much time on those exotic spots, and don't worry too much if you get them slightly wrong. It's not going to have a big impact on your win rate. Ace queen will be a free bet. And if this guy squeezes, I think ace 10. Ace 10 is in a pretty horrible spot. I think it mixes actually all three. Like, you don't want to call too much in those positions, but you do have to find some calls. I have to roll pretty low, so I think I will just go for the fold. But it's certainly close. And we face the 4-bet. Again, a spot where in theory you have to call. I don't know the guy, and versus an unknown there's just a big chance that he's a recreational, and this call doesn't make much money in theory anyway. So of course there's a chance that this guy is super out of line, but when there's a worst case scenario where this is an unknown recreational who is only 4-betting super tight, then the call is just so bad that I would rather fold and only call versus regs where I know they have enough 4-bets to make the call profitable. Here I think I need to call. this guy seems to be a wreck, and he goes for the min 4-bet sizing. So versus this sizing, I can't fold any suited hand, I would assume. Not really a great board for us. I mean, I'm thinking like if you go super, like 10%, get to fold almost no hands versus this. But what are my weakest hands here? Queen, Jack, Queen 10. Like every suited hand has to call. Jack 10 as a gut shot. Queen Jack as a vector flush draw. So I think I will actually mix this hand as a call versus 10%. I think I need just to call some complete air hands. And on a low roll I go for the fold. But yeah, versus 10%, I think you just have to call some of these hands. I mean, if I would fold all of my hands that don't have, that are not a flush or a pair, I would just fold like a massive amount versus a tiny bet, so that can't be right. So I think if I had a hand like ace queen suited, I would always call. Ace jack suited, I would mainly call, and then the weaker hands, I think also sometimes have to get in there just to, yeah, they can hit the pair or they can try to bluff if it goes jack turn. The price is just too good to fold too much here. Get snap called by another unknown player, likely a recreational when he calls the small blind. I think this is the sort of hand that really prefers checking versus a recreational, as it gives him the chance to do something stupid, and this hand can't really go for free straights anyway. And now we just close our eyes and call. It's like my default strategy, unless he goes huge. He does go check again. So now I think we have an option of going for a block bet. Could also go for a half pot bet, then check back the river. Feels close. Going to check again, give him the chance to maybe over bluff. Of course he could hit an ace, but I'm just going to hit call, and he does have a straight, that's fine. Yeah, as long as you don't fold, it's fine. Like you can bet, I think flop is actually probably higher V to check, because recreational can just do some funky stuff and you can always call, and you can't really bet there in free streets. On the turn I think you can go either way, and as played, as long as you don't fold, I think you will be fine. Five for suited is usually not really an open at this rake structure, but with passive players on the cutoff button and the big blind being recreational, I think it's good. And again, a guy where I would assume he has too many hands pre-flop, and while in equilibrium this wouldn't be like a bet at too high of a frequency. I'm not even sure, like he doesn't have much 2-6. But the 3-4, 5-4 suited connects, which is better for the big blind. But anyway, if this guy is too loose, then barreling is just very attractive. I think 4-5 in theory is probably not even the greatest turn barrel, because your 4 and 5 odds are just completely dead. So while I would love to barrel on the check, I think this exact combo I actually prefer to go for the delay bluff on the river. Just because if it goes check, my 4 and 5 are worth so much more money and I cannot bluff catch. 7-6-3 in those positions not the worst board. So I think queens I will always bet, and pocket 10s is a hand that would quite often go for the check back, because he also has jacks and queens in those positions. And I think checks could also check a bit, but I think queens is like the overpair it's the strongest overpair that needs the most protection, so I think it's plays the most aggressive here. You could argue also to just barrel the 4-5 if you think the guy is just folding way too much. Maybe it's just better, but yeah. If I had a hand like, let's say, Queen 10, King Queen, those sort of hands I think are pretty mandatory barrels on the check versus recreational. But exactly my hand, as I mentioned, has nice properties to go for the delay line. So this guy likely regular. I mean, you should note the 10% sizing, but I don't really play 200 zone too much, so I won't bother now. Not many big pots so far, but certainly quite some interesting spots. And in those positions, actually jamming is a thing. And you can just balance this by jamming your ace king off, and then you jam some kings, and you will be fine. It's pretty nice because if you 4-bet ace king and get jammed on, it's actually close. And also with ace king, you really don't mind putting maximum pressure and denying equity. And of course, you have to jam some overpairs to not, like if you would only jam ace king, you could snap you off with every pair, of course. And yeah, then you jam some ace king, and then you have an easy strategy. It's always nice when you're out of position and don't have to worry too much about playing post-flop out. That's a bit of a mistake, probably with my sizing scheme. This guy is shorter. Don't get punished. Six, seven, again on this table I would open with some more passive players behind. And so this guy is really tight. Which, if I would 3-bet ace queen, I guess it would put me in a tough spot versus a jam. If he's so tight, so I think, as you could call it anyways, I go for the call. I think easy check with his queen, don't really benefit much by betting. Looking to check call. And we'll try to check this down. Could check jam, potentially. Like, I would never check a 7 on this runout, so I can't really ever bluff a 7 in that line. So if I want to have a bluff, this seems quite nice, because I would expect him to barrel the queen in spades quite a lot as well if he had a bluff. But he goes check check and we win versus ace 10, perfect. Great board for out of position, I expect a lot of bets, and 5-6 will just hit the muck. But yeah, when you think about check raise bluffing, you always want to consider your blockers and unblockers. We have the ace in clubs, so we block flushes, and the ace is never bluffing an ace on the river, I would assume. Or if you had the ace in clubs with ace 5, I think you would barrel on an earlier street. So the hand only blocks, the ace in clubs only blocks value. And then my side card also seems pretty nice with the queen in spades. Pure call, table 1. Because as I mentioned, he is more likely to barrel flushes, so hands that contain the queen in spades on the turn. So I just make it more likely that he has an air hand that gets to the river, and that will fold, of course, to the check raise. Face another 75% bet. Our hand, of course, always clicks call. I think we'll start folding 6x and then call hands like 7s, 9s, 10s, because pocket pairs perform better than board pairs on those board pairing turns. And we win this time, that's nice. So again, I think where you could tag like this guy is, like, I'm not saying that this is a bad give up. This might actually be a good give up, I don't know. It is certainly necessary to give up some hands, and this guy is capable of giving up hands. So you should not auto catch when there are lots of draws that bricked. King Queen will be mainly call, sometimes 3-bet if he opens. And I think I will call on this flop, no matter if he goes small or big, and he does go 75. I think even if I were to overbet, I don't think King Queen could fold. 2.1 is going to muck. But this would also be something where I would advise to note the sizing scheme. Ace check mixes in some 3-bets here. I think 75 on the turn is good. Like, the queen is a really good card for his range, of course. I think versus this sizing I will need to call every check and then decent amount of 6x and 5x still. Now, on the river, I would expect him to slow down, of course, and perhaps play. I mean, he could still have a hand like ace check, king check, maybe 5 6s, of course. Does go all in. Yeah, I'm very tempted to just fold this, like. I mean, I have a lot of strong hands, first of all, and then already a big bet on the flop, blindly blind, where people are quite often just not really having a strategy and only playing their hands. And then jamming on the river, I don't think, I'm not sure if he gets there with 7-8 and thinks, yeah, I need to have a jamming range. Like, I don't think jam, I think jam might be okay, range-wise, to have it at the low frequency, because you do have some 5 6s that might want to do this. I think freeze will mainly check raise, or probably pure check raise with pocket freeze actually. And yeah, like, don't think I need to call king queen here. The check is pretty bad to, I mean 9-10 gets there, but I don't really check raise queen check. He always bet calls queen check. I mean, sometimes he doesn't bet queen check for the 75% sizing, I suppose. But I think I would rather slow play a hand like pocket 8s on the turn. And I think my hand, I will go for the bet. I think maybe I should have bet slightly bigger to have, no, I think the sizing is right. Like, the 3 doesn't really block many checkbacks, so I think freeze just plays usually the most aggressive on those runouts. And probably just jamming river. I would have liked to have some more time bank here, because the runout is not so easy to play. At least not when you don't have freeze and can go for it. But basically I think on the turn you need to check quite some strong hands as well, but I would rather check pocket 8s, queen 8, because the 8 block is check back range. And with pocket freeze, I think the more aggressive option is preferred. And then on the river, I mean, king 10 getting there doesn't really matter too much. I guess I could sometimes have king 10, king in spades. King queen mainly calling. And will always call versus half pot. Don't think king queen, like you raise a lot on the paired boards, but I don't think king queen is the sort of hand that wants to raise. And on the 7 I would expect him to bet like 3/4 to pot. I mean, overbet is fine, I guess, but I think I still have some trips. I make pocket 7s all the time on the turn. I don't think it's like the preferred sizing, but can't be too bad, especially if I never slow play on the flop. 10-8 is close. And really bad board for the small blind here. He has more 4, like he has 5 for offsuit, we never open it. It's also connected with the 7, so I think here we can just snap 1/3, kind of interesting. We need to be careful to not fold too much, but this does seem like the sort of hand. 10-8. If we had a spade, of course, it would continue. Probably mainly by raising, but also calling would be fine. But yeah, we do get to fold some hands. King jack in spades, of course, free betting. And great board, both for our hand and our range. Jack hat is connected, is pretty strong. We free bet some ace jack off that he can't call. And yeah, it just doesn't connect too well with this board. It doesn't hit all the sets, pocket threes, he doesn't hit much. I mean, you don't slow play too much, but I think this seems like a pretty great slow play, honestly, blocking the calling range so heavily with the check. So I think I like checking back this flush exactly. And I mean, of course, you need some, we are out deeper, so I think slow plays might just be more important. And I think on the river, I just, let's see, we'll send like, if I river ace is what I want to raise, probably. So I think I go for a non-all-in sizing. Because we are so deep. Check, check. On a turn, you play quite passive again. And I think in those positions I would also delay for a big sizing, as I don't really have many 6x, 5x that want to block bet. Let's see, called. Oh, okay, this guy was just a recreational. I mean, if I had known that, I would of course just play my hand and go all in. But of course, value bet now on the river. But I think, like, range-wise, when we are so deep, if I want to only play one sizing, ace is a hand I will have a lot. And then I think a non-all-in sizing makes more sense. Don't mind the play, but of course a bit annoying when he shows you that he's a recreational player. Probably would have called the 72 big blinds more as well. I think the best slow play on the turn would probably be Jack 10 in spades, where you block his Jack X and his pocket tens with a spade that can call. And then I think a pretty bad checkback would be Ace King in spades, where you unblock all the hands, like you unblock pocket queens, you unblock his Jack X. That would be how I would construct my range in this spot. With the very passive guy in the big blind, I go for the exploit open with King 5, and Queen 8 will go 3-bet or call sometimes. Will go mix both options. And those paired boards that don't really interact too much with both players are actually pretty great. Like, of course you are 3-betting trashy hands, but from what I found, those paired boards are actually pretty nice. And on the two-tone boards, actually betting small, and on the rainbow boards, betting bigger is a decent strategy. And he has to make some very insane calls. Okay, this is also recreational versus the small size. Goes for the turn donk. Huh. I think I go for a raise and chip it in on diamonds or bricks. Also going to chip it in on the queen. And will call a donk jam from him. Like, I don't know this player really, but from experience those turn donks are just quite often draws. Could show me of course a 5, it's possible, but yeah. Think we played, I mean, of course it's some bias because it worked out, but queen check and fold. But yeah, I kind of nailed his range pretty well. I think he just has a lot of draws. Like, it doesn't even have to be a draw as strong, it could just be like ace7, ace8. Where I think I can raise and then bluff on a diamond because I have the diamond blocker and expect him to be more weighted towards spades. But especially on bricks, I think this is again a pretty attractive bluff candidate. And versus the big blind 3-bet, like, don't really want to call this hand. And this is, of course, would also be very important to take notes here, because when you have a read as well on the guy, then you can just really play very well versus him and exploit the maximum. Fours is kind of close, if no recreation, the big blind. I don't mind folding. Could have not snap folded the king 3 here, where the recreation was in the big blind. So now I'm already punished because I know I played some hand already versus him and he made some mistake, but I can't remember what it was. Anyway, I think king 10 I mainly prefer starting with a big bet because the hand can go for free streets on some runouts. And they fist the raise, which is really annoying. Really would wish that I took a note on what this guy was doing wrong. But as crazy as it seems, I don't hate folding with this. I'm going to explain the logic a bit later. Check. The sizing here would be 75 check, f6x, 8x, 3x. I'm not sure, like I do have a lot of potential bluffs here, but I also get to just bet a lot, like every pair can bet for 75 here at the decent frequency. And having some one diamond hands to bluff on the diamond, to have nice bluffs on the diamond, run out seem good, but not super sure. Maybe this is like stretching it. I will certainly mark this hand. And the king 10 fold, like again, it sucks that I don't know what this guy is up to. But he raised really fast also my big bet, and what I think is that his range is probably just too strong. I'm not saying that I can't have a better hand than him, but if his range is like only queen check, 7-8 flush draws, and like basically high equity draws and hands that I'm drawing dead against, then yeah, I don't really think it's profitable to continue king 10 without the backdoor flush draw here. I mean, if he doesn't have like naked ace check with a ace in hearts, 5x check raises, and also some check raises that will give up on the turn. If he just always is going to blast the turn, because his range is so strong, I would rather already fold the flop, thinking that the range I'm up against, my hand doesn't have enough equity and it doesn't realize its equity well. So even though I might have the best hand, I don't think I will get to showdown a lot, and I think I don't hate it. I mean, terrible board in general versus the small blind flat, but this guy is like a recreational and quite wide, so don't think this guy only has sets here. And of course my hand is pretty strong. Interesting snap call. 6-7. I think there's like, could maybe split like some overbets in there with 6-7 and 6x in hearts. Just thinking what I want to do with my hand. This absolute snap call makes me think he has an ace, honestly, and I don't want to try to bluff this guy off an ace. So we try to check down our pair. Ooh, and actually win. That's nice. King 7-5, not quite in range bet, but I think it was recreational. I don't expect enough check raises, so of course I instantly get check raised. But that's fine. 7-8 versus the slightly bigger free bet is mainly going to fold, sometimes calling. We are deep, I'm not really sure if this is much of a benefit for my hand. I mean, I'm sure that I can't pure call it on a low roll, I just knock. Then I call it some of the time, should be fine. Ace-9 suited, calling. Rather free bet some of the lower or better Ace-6 suited hands. And with a 75, this is an easy fold. Like the backdoor flush draw loses a lot of value once there's a front door flush draw. And again, not sure if this is like actually a high frequency bet, especially ace queen doesn't seem great, but not expecting players to play well against this limit. I think making your life easier and simplifying is good. And I mean the betting frequency will still be quite high, I would assume. I don't think this is a good bluff catch-up. Like, what do I expect his bluffs to be? I mean, of course he has the 5-6, 5-7 sort of hands, but they will quite often check raise. And I think a hand like queen check, queen 10 with a spade are hands that will often take this line and bluff now. So I don't like having a queen. So I think if I had a hand like ace8, ace9, those would be like good catches. But I do certainly have to call quite a lot of ace highs here in this. A lot of ace highs on this run out versus his sizing, because I'm going to barrel very aggressively on the turn with pocket 8s plus or something like that. I mean, the higher over pairs can probably check back, like queens checks. But yeah, still, that leaves me with a lot of ace highs to call. This guy is short. I mean, this guy is pretty face up, so I think I like checking, and if he checks back, there's a decent chance that he just has a weak hand. Seems like the sort of hand that always wants to call. Like, you don't want to raise fold, you don't want to raise call, so I'm going to press call and don't think I'm going to donk on the flush turn. He does check back. I mean, this guy is pretty tight, but I still don't expect him to have too many queens, kings, aces here. Check 10 suited, low roll, I go for the call. I also went for a smaller size. I'm not sure, I mean, this might be stretching it. This is half pot, I actually think I fold. But I just don't think that I ever have, that he ever has a better hand. Like, don't expect him to check back a flush really. Don't expect him to hit both, so. Feels like my hand is strong enough to bet 2x pot here, but I don't know, perhaps a smaller sizing is slightly better. Let's say I had ace king, then of course I would not want to jam because I just blocked too much of the calling range, but with jack 10 I think it's fine. A6-8, we certainly need quite some checkbacks. King 5 seems like it could bet a bit more often than the global frequency, because you benefit by already folding out king queen, king jack, king 10 sort of hands. You do have some backdoor playability. This doesn't look like the worst barrel on the turn to me, like I just have pretty nice arm blockers. And I am MP, so I need to be careful that my range isn't too strong. And that there's enough like air hands to incentivize him to call basically. Snap call is interesting. I mean, it would be nicer to have, I think king jack can go either way. It would be nicer to have a spade to bluff the river. Just thinking whether, of course I sometimes have 8s, I sometimes make jacks, I sometimes make aces. So going really huge, I wouldn't hate, like all in. Just expect him to maybe fold every time. King jack needs to, I think, pure call versus the small sizing, especially on the paired board. It's really important. He does check the river, which is like weird. I mean, I suppose I check back king high. Like I don't expect him to step too much ace high, and if he does, I don't think he would fold. Yeah, after king 5, I wouldn't hate perhaps just jamming in the river. I think it certainly looks pretty strong. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a theoretical play to do that, but wouldn't hate it. Table 275 check, and I don't think my hand ever does anything, so let's go for the check. I don't think his queen 10 stab on the turn. Oh, like this we will note. open. And table 2 is like decent board for us, but we can't bet everything. Like, it's usually the case when we blind. Our hand is not laughing to bet, but still getting in there, and versus the raise, we always fold. Yeah, I don't think like the 8 turn is actually, like, first of all, I don't think you should bet, you should probe small. Like, every pair that he has is just worth a lot more money. So I think there's a 75 for check spot. And yeah, also queen 10 doesn't, like, don't think I fold any hands that's worse. But of course, perhaps he has studied like some MDA or something and saw that people massively overfold versus this sizing. So from that perspective, it might be a decent play. King 3 suited always calling. Interesting that he starts off with the big bet. Bit unusual, or half pot size sort of sizing. Would have expected a smaller bet, but certainly fine. And on a turn, I'm playing, both players will play super polarized. Like, he should play overbet check, I should play overbet check. So that leaves me with king 3 always checking. I think the thinnest hand here is perhaps king 9 or king check. Like, I think king 9 diamonds would certainly be fine to overbet. I can't have king 9 diamonds, sorry. And easy value bet now. No frequency forward, mainly fold. If we do face a raise, that's close. Thankfully we don't. So in theory I would play like a polarized approach on these boards. Just thinking like what would be the perfect sizing for my hand. I think it's probably a small bet. If I bet too big, he starts folding weaker 6x, which is of course bad. Checking also doesn't seem great. So yeah, I think I like a small bet versus the recreational. You just always want to try to find out like what does your hand want to accomplish, kind of. I mean, you table 1 a bit debate board, I need to check it out. You always want to try and find out what your hand wants to accomplish, but you have to disguise it from your opponent, especially the better they are, the more you have to disguise it. And therefore you need to be thinking what does your range want to do. So if this guy steps small, then I think ace queen could actually go for a small probe bet on the turn. Like, let's say this guy is stabbing the flop high frequency small sizing, then I think ace queen is a nice turn stab. But if he is pretty polarized and doesn't bet too much, then I think on the turn I have to check almost everything again. And pretty close, but on a high roll I will go for the call. I think I would rather have a spade, not sure. And not a great run out for us. King 9, okay. That's wild. If this guy is a bit tighter, so I'm a bit surprised that he shows up with some random overbluff there. I don't think King 9 wants to bet the turn. not only is queen hand, like your strategy depends on imposition strategy, and it's of course tough to know what he does. But it's like it's good to know that that there's a dependence going on. Like you can't just look at it in a vacuum and say, ah, okay, this is the perfect probe sizing, because the perfect the perfect delay sizing for you depends on his stabbing range. Turn on the flushed high card turn. I think I like small check, and on a low roll I go for a check. Not great facing the call forward here, but I suppose I will go for the call in those positions. So I think I could certainly value bet any straight, any 2-pair. Ace check feels close. I don't hate it, honestly. Might be a bit too much, but I think the way this plays is you fold jacks 10s and then call like 9s 8s with the intention to bluff off his kings queens jacks 10s. But yeah, I think this is fine to fold. The ace check hand might have been a bit too thin actually, but whatever. So I think I will call it a video once I sit out and explains. Of course, have to be careful, I don't have much time back here. Or is calling here is the check raise. Quite fast check on the turn. I don't mind betting half pot check here on those sort of textures. I think a small size is actually not the perfect sizing here. And on the river, I think I can actually go pretty big. Wonder if I can like even jam here, but I think I just go 150. I think he just has king queen a lot, and he takes the line snap check raise, snap check call. And like even in theory, it's fine. Like in theory, he is just incentivized to fast play stronger hands. Oh, that sucks. How can he jam there? Huh? A3? That makes no sense. Oh, we should some time, more time. What a bizarre hand here. Check. He check raises flop. Check calls turn. Check jams river. I mean, I suppose I set is still strong enough to do this. Yeah, confusing hand. if this guy watches the video, would be nice if he told me what he had. But yeah, we will end it on that notice, and yeah, see you next one. Bye.